Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Southeastern 14 College Football Week 1 preview. It's the Florida State Seminoles that will be taking on the Louisiana State Tigers. This is a matchup of blue blood programs that is rather rare, but still an exciting one to start the season. Of course, you've got the Florida State Seminoles led by Mike Norvell, who is under a little bit of pressure. It's time for the Florida State Seminoles to start to perform a little bit, and it's a new era of college football down in the Bayou with Brian Kelly having taken over. So let's go ahead and touch on the basics here. Of course, this is a Week 1 matchup. This will actually be taking place on September 4th, the day after most of the games in Week 1 are getting underway, and this is a matchup that will be playing at the Superdome in New Orleans. And when you look at that spread right there, LSU -3. So typically the guys who set the spread give the team with home field advantage with, let's call it what it is, playing at the Superdome for LSU to open up the year. Fans are going to be rocking. It's a night game. You know what that means down in New Orleans. So to only be a 3-point favorite, they're saying this is kind of a toss-up type game. The over-under is 51.5. FSU leads the all-time series 7-2. Last matchup was 1991, and FSU has a 4-game winning streak in this series. This game will be broadcast on ABC, and of course, both teams' records are 0-0. This is the first game of the season. Let's look at some of the headlines here. Like I said, the Brian Kelly era begins. The Ed Orgeron era in LSU was one that provided LSU with a championship, but also with a lot of headaches as well. And if there's one thing that really came out of this hire and what LSU was looking for in this hire, of course, they're getting a great head coach and Brian Kelly, someone who's proven they can win at multiple different levels. But when it comes down to it, structure was the main thing. They were looking for someone that could be the adult in the room, so to speak, something that Ed Orgeron failed to do at times. Ed Orgeron was like the perfect cultural fit down there. He was a big reason why LSU won the national championship, but he was also a big reason why LSU fell off so drastically like they did after that, after Joe Burrow, after Jamar Chase. All those guys were gone. Like I said, pressure on Mike Norvell. It's time for Mike Norvell to start producing some things and getting Florida State back to where Florida State is historically used to be. And it's been a long road. He's had a lot of deficiencies in talent that he's had to make up for in recruiting since when he came on board there. The team did do better in the second half of the season, ended up finishing 5-7, but you have to keep in mind they were 0-4 to start the year. So Florida State played much better in the second half of the season, especially defensively. And then the question is, who starts and finishes at quarterback for LSU? And does Jordan Travis finish the game at quarterback for Florida State? And the only reason you say that is because they like to utilize Jordan Travis's legs a lot. He took a lot of hits. He missed some games last year. So hopefully that young man stays healthy throughout the season. But they do have some talented guys waiting in the wings there at Florida State just in case. But the bigger thing is with LSU, man, you don't know if it's going to be, at least at this point, we don't know if it's going to be Myles Brennan. We don't know if it's going to be Jayden Daniels, or we don't know if it's going to be Garrett Nussmier. So there is the headlines going into the game. The dudes in this one, the guys that are the players to watch. Like I said, who's going to be the quarterback for LSU? If you're going the more conservative route, you would think it'd be Myles Brennan. If you're looking for some creativity, explosivity, you think it'd be Jayden Daniels. And then when it comes to a guy that has a big arm, big talent, it could be Garrett Nussmier as well. So it doesn't matter which route he goes. In my opinion, you're going to have some explosive plays out of wide receivers because you've got maybe the best wide receiver room in the entire country. You look at Kayshon Boutte, you look at Jaray Jenkins, who's listed there. Also, guys like Bech, Malik Nabers, Brian Thomas. So many guys in that wide receiver room that can really, really play. John Emery looks to be the lead back for LSU this year. They get Noah Cain in from Penn State as well. So Brian Kelly loves to establish a run, get things going physically downhill. They have a young offensive line. And one reason I put Will Campbell there is because anytime you are a true freshman starting at left tackle in the SEC. It's going to be interesting. Now, Will Campbell, by all accounts, is a rock star. He's doing tremendous. One of the more highly rated prospects to come in, and that's saying something for LSU. But still, left tackle, true freshman starting. That'll be something that Florida State, I'm sure, tries to welcome him to college football in a unique way. On offense for the Seminoles, Jordan Travis returns at quarterback. He set the Florida State quarterback rushing record last year. He's a guy who is very dynamic with his legs, had to be at times because the pass protection was awful for Florida State. The sack rate was still extremely high. So Jordan Travis is a guy who can extend plays, and he's looking to get a little bit better protection up front. He's in a new system with Kenny Dillingham having gone to Oregon, but still with Mike Norvell there and that familiarity, look for Florida State to be much more comfortable in their quarterback situation, at least early on, than maybe LSU is. Trey Benson is a running back that comes over from Oregon, and he proved to be explosive in the spring game, a guy that can really hit some of those home run type plays, and Florida State will be leaning on him early. Ontario Wilson has been the leading receiver for Florida State for the last couple of seasons, so he brings some continuity there with Jordan Travis as the number one receiver. Micah Pittman, another Oregon transfer. He's a guy that'll be in the slot. He can be shifty. He can make some plays. And Caden Lyles is one of the offensive line transfers. They ended up getting 3 offensive line transfers, including Caden Lyles. But Caden Lyles is probably the most important because he's going to fortify that center position, a center position that Florida State struggled mightily with last year. Now let's look at the defensive side of the ball for the Florida State Seminoles. 9 returning starters for Adam Fuller's defense, and they lose 2 key performers in ACC Defensive Player of the Year, Jermaine Johnson, and their other defensive end, Kier Thomas. Both of those guys gone to the NFL, but they fill those gaps immediately. One in a big way with FCS All-American Jared Verse, who came over from Albany. There was lots of programs, Georgia, different programs alike were interested in Jared Verse. He ends up going to the Florida State Seminoles. Robert Cooper is a guy who has been very productive in the middle for Florida State over the years. He returns, a big body there in the middle. And then you talk about secondary. They're going to need a really good secondary, as we talked to neutralize LSU, because we talked about how talented LSU is at the receiver position. You couldn't get 2 better names in the secondary than Jamie and Greedy, and they will be trying their best to neutralize those talented receivers on the offensive side for LSU. You look at LSU defensively, Mason Smith. Everybody knows that Mason Smith's one of the best defensive tackles in the entire country. He was a guy who it came down between, USC, LSU, Georgia, those kind of schools fighting for his commitment. Texas was in there fighting for his commitment back a few seasons ago, a few recruiting cycles ago. And Mason Smith is a guy who can fortify that middle, and he's not just a run stopper. He's one of the better pass rushers up the middle as a defensive tackle. So Mason Smith, a All-American candidate to watch out for. BJ Ojulari, yes, he's the younger brother of Azeez Ojulari, who's in the NFL right now, came out of Georgia, but BJ has made a name of his own for sure. Mike Jones, Mike Jones, that's right. Mike Jones at the inside there has become a vocal leader and a leader on the field for this LSU defense. And the team gets a lot of energy from seeing how Mike plays. So look for Mike Jones to make some big plays in this game to start off with. And then defensive back transfers for LSU are key. They really kind of had to go back to the drawing board when it comes to the secondary, because they lost Derek Stingley a long time. LSU great there, who battled injury through his career, but he has gone to the NFL. And then Eli Ricks over at Alabama now. In the SEC West, he transfers over to Alabama. So when it comes down to it, they had to go out and just reload there, and they do so by bringing in Jarrick Bernard-Converse, a first-team All-Big 12 guy from Oklahoma State. You've got Mekhi Garner, who is from Louisiana Lafayette, leaving that program that Billy Napier used to lead, now being at Florida. And then Greg Brooks is a interconference transfer coming over from Arkansas. Seven Banks, a guy from Ohio State that they're trying to get back healthy as well. So don't know if that he'll be ready to go to start off the year. But you've got lots of guys that are transferring in. And then Joe Faucha from Arkansas, that almost seemed like Arkansas and LSU are doing a straight-up trade when it comes to some of their transfers this offseason. But that should help fortify and give some experience to Brian Kelly's secondary there, a secondary that was devoid of a lot of experience, like I said, after Ricks and Stingley having moved on, just to name a couple. And then Ali Gay is a guy who has battled injury throughout his LSU career. He comes back for one more trip to try to get things going. He was on pace to have double-digit sacks before getting hurt. And Ali Gay is a guy that LSU looks forward to having there on the field, not only for his production, but for his leadership as well. So now let's look at what we think the score is going to be. Again, this is an early prediction. If you want our official prediction, Southeastern 14, like I said, I'm Blaine Gilmer, Chris Lee, and Blake Lovell will all midweek during the season be giving official predictions and updates for these games, breaking news, analysis, all that good stuff. So make sure you subscribe to this channel to get that as they go live during the season. But Southeastern 14 right now is going to give LSU a 27-20 edge over Florida State. The reasons being LSU's defensive front is really going to get after that Florida State offensive line. Even with Caden Lyles and some improvement up front, I think those pass rushers are really talented. They're going to have Jordan Travis kind of running for his life a little bit over there. But this is still a close contest. When you look at it, like I said, LSU doesn't lose in the Dome. They don't lose in New Orleans. That is a big advantage for LSU, the game being in New Orleans. But ultimately, what I think it comes down to is I think this game will be kind of a rock fight early, because you've got Florida State, got some new pieces over there trying to get used to each other on the offensive side, even though Jordan Travis returns. And then the quarterback, when you're in the middle of a quarterback battle, like a three-way quarterback battle for that matter, like LSU is, you can't get a lot of continuity, a lot of reps with the people that you really want to get the timing down with, stuff like that. So I think you'll see both these offenses struggle early. I think ultimately it's LSU's receivers, Kayshon Boutte, Jaray Jenkins, Jack Bech, Malik Nabers, Brian Thomas. I mean, the list goes on and on, that will end up making enough plays against that Florida State secondary to put them up over the top. LSU 27, Florida State 20.